Hello, and welcome to another episode of Shampoo and Booze. This is episode number 7 at shampooandbooze.com. I thought we would talk today about house and customer issues.
Okay.
Customers.
So, like, specifically when something goes wrong and how to deal with that.
Now, I think that because we do an eBay business also, we've learned a lot about how to handle that kind of stuff, customer issues, and feeling like we, have to navigate through what the best thing to do is. I feel like that's informed us for, the rental.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to learn how to not just make people happy, but also just for our own mental health, how to gauge whether a problem is something that really we need to spend a lot of time on, or whether we just muscle through it, or whether we just throw some money at it and make someone happy,
Right.
Because when you're running your own business, probably any kind of business, if you allow a problem to take over your life, and it can't happen, where it lose sleep, or you're getting angry, I mean, it can ruin a business, because then you're totally unproductive in anything else, or you become totally paranoid about everyone you're dealing with thinking they're all after you.
Right, and there's a way to be sustainable about it. I think that's what we've kind of been learning. I think you're much better at it than I am. You've helped me be calm when there's a quote unquote emergency with a renter. I think that's important, so you're not just completely frazzled when you're dealing with the problem.
And and that being said, we are not experts on this, or we don't always handle it the best, but we've done it with time.
Yeah.
And ultimately I think we do a good job at the end of the day. That doesn't mean that we don't go through that strife.
Yeah, the stress
leading up to it. I mean, I know when I'm on the Airbnb forums, I don't spend a lot of time there, because it's so drama filled, and I see these people where there's some issue, but man, it becomes this huge thing in someone's life, and I'm like, it's not a big deal.
Well, I think part of it is there's a process to it. It's there's an issue, you need to communicate with the people, you need to solve the issue, and then long term you need to figure out how to prevent that issue again, if possible,
So why don't we come up with an example that we've had to deal with recently?
Okay, so one big example has been the Wi-Fi at our farmhouse. The internet service in our county can go out sometimes randomly. We're in a rural county. It's pretty stable at our house, but it will go out, intermittently sometimes.
Although we've had issues, I guess the big issue we've had recently is that for some reason, the internet wire coming into our home was having problems.
Right.
So we had 3 or 4 times where the internet company had to come out and fix this wire, and they kept saying it was fixed, and it wasn't. And the problem is, because we live in a rural area, there's no phone service.
Right.
So the internet's really important for people to be able to feel like they're connected.
There's no cell phone service.
Right.
Yeah. So people coming from out of town can't just call their friend, check their email, on their own. So, like you said, we called a million times over 3 months. Finally, we got them the phone guys decided to move the line to instead of it being in the master bedroom, which was a weird spot anyway, they put it down in the front room, right next to the jack box outside. They just drilled through the wall. So that seems to have fixed it for now. The last few months, it's been okay. But there was a situation where, people came and it didn't work the whole weekend, and we actually refunded them a full night because, they had come out here expecting to have that service.
Well, I mean, so we had 2 incidents. The first time was there was a couple there, and the internet, it went out, and all we could tell them was, and this is what we always do, they called us, we go out there immediately to see if we can a fix-it.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't fix it, and we just said, we apologize, we're calling the company.
Yeah.
You know, they'll come out tomorrow, and the company did come out and
Right.
fix it.
Right.
And so I think when you're dealing with customers, that's all, or
Yeah.
with a renter, that's all they want to hear. It's not my problem, it's your problem, fix it for us.
Right, we're fixing it. Right.
But then that time, it you said there was like a group of young ladies that came out who were expecting the internet. It did not work.
We were actually out of town. We were in Europe still. So we couldn't go over and troubleshoot. So we called the company to come fix it the next day. They said they would be there, and they did not show up.
And that's when we comped them. And I think that's a good example of, you know what, ultimately, it wasn't our fault. It's not the renter's fault. I mean, I guess it's kind of the internet company's fault. But for the renter, we're
responsible.
Who are, it's responsible.
Yeah.
And it did, I guess maybe I didn't have to, give them a full night's, but I just felt like, why not,
Yeah.
And I know that's what I would expect for it's myself.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the internet the entire time.
Yeah.
They were there.
Yeah, that was the first time we ever refunded someone. So that was a bummer, but
it turned out she was psyched. She was like, thanks.
Yeah, she was really happy. So the problem with issues like that is, these people are coming from our nearest, closest city, and we're like, we want these people to return.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll return.
Well,
but
it's also, we try and, when it's happening, it feels like I can feel being frustrated and angry and all that, but I have to remember, I want to treat people the way I want to be treated,
Yeah.
That's what I would expect.
Right, exactly.
Like, remember that time in Amsterdam and it was stayed at an Airbnb?
Yes, so this was my issue. We were staying at an Airbnb in Amsterdam for 10 nights. And we work on the internet. We're on the internet all the time. So it was really nice to just not have to go to a cafe. It's raining outside, blah, blah, blah. So the internet went out. This guy who lived upstairs was away for 3 nights, never responded, never, checked his messages. We texted him, blah, blah, blah. So for 3 days, 2 to 3 days, we didn't have internet at the apartment, which wasn't too bad because we went down to the cafe, whatever. But, finally his roommate came down and was like, oh, we have our neighbor's Wi-Fi password, and he gave it to me. It's it made me so mad that he wasn't responsive, and he wasn't like, oh, here's the other Wi-Fi network,
Right.
So I didn't ask for money back, so I was like, I felt like I was being pretty snobby about it, but still that's the kind of service that a lot of people do not respond to.
I think that experience informed us of how we treat our renters. All I ever want is quick response time and just them to tell us they're working on it. So even if we didn't have internet, as long as you said I'm working on it, I'd be like, all right, well, at least he's being responsible rather than MIA.
Saying nothing.
But then there are times when we've had, so we've been renting for, almost
since February.
So 8 months or so.
Wow.
Now we're having those issues where the renters are doing things quote unquote wrong.
Well, wrong.
I mean, where things happen. So one family came and we have a hammock outside. And I went over, and there were holes in it.
Yeah, it was broken, essentially.
Right. I mean, there are huge holes in it. But the thing is, though, is that I had to realize, I bought a cheap hammock.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a cheap hammock because I bought it on the internet, but it turned out it was kind of flimsy. So I can see, I put out something cheap, it broke. I mean, it's my fault.
I think it's one of those things, too, where, when people on the forums as well are like, should I ding their security deposit, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just we have to realize what is normal wear and tear.
Right.
You have to just be some, little kid probably stuck his leg through it and pushed himself through it, and the parents never saw it. Right. It's what are you going to do?
Or even if they did, it's whatever. But, I feel we've never dinged someone's security deposit.
Yeah.
Because I feel it would have to be something where it looked like it was done out of real malice or real ear.
Done on purpose.
Right. Or something done that was just horrible.
Pouring
Pouring a big thing of barbecue sauce all over the couch.
Yeah, like, I mean, just stuff
something...
like they trashed your house. But, so the good thing is the solution for the hammock was we went out and bought a sturdier hammock that was like fully like woven fabric, not like the kind that's like strings put together. So we're like, oh, we need a better hammock. Like, that's a lesson learned, you know?
And I think the other thing too is we have to remember, like, that couple, that family that stayed, you know, they paid us like over $600.
I think it was more than that, because they stayed an extra night even.
Right. So if we have to replace $20 or $30 worth of stuff,
if
that's great.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like,
it's just
that's a great return on investment versus me trying to, it's nickel and dime the renter, and then him leaving feeling like
just feeling off, bad. You know? Totally. So it's a weird balance where you're like, oh, like some stuff went bad.
I think business people call it, it's a cost of doing business.
Cost of doing business. Yeah. That's good. So another thing that happened now, for a moment, you and I switched jobs where you were doing the bedrooms and the bathrooms upstairs and I was cleaning the kitchen. And man, I really noticed how much people cook bacon. Right. Like, people come to the country, they cook bacon.
It's kind of a thing, I guess. They're in a farmhouse and
they want to like bacon and eggs.
Make a bunch of
yeah. So I noticed there was like bacon grease everywhere. It was on the light above the oven. It was on the side of the refrigerator. And then I looked up even further, and it was on the ceiling.
How is that even possible?
Bacon grease on the ceiling. Now, the only thing I can think of... Now, I will say this. When we first bought the farmhouse, there was bacon grease on the ceiling. So something's going on where people cook bacon and it gets on their ceiling. But I think it's because they get the pan really hot.
Too hot.
Too hot, and either they're cooking bacon and then they put another set in and it just goes whoosh, like it just goes crazy. So we cleaned it up as best we could around the house, but I decided what we needed was we needed a jar for people to put bacon grease in, because a lot of times I hope to God they're not putting it down the kitchen sink, but we saw some bacon grease stains outside on the brick because I think people were like putting it in the yard. They just don't know what to do with it because we don't provide anything for them.
So that was our fault.
Yeah, so I just wasn't thinking people are making this much bacon. So we got a bacon grease jar like on Amazon with a little lid, and it says grease on it, so it's like very clear. I also bought one of those splatter guards that goes on top of the frying pan, which Jay at first was like, I don't want to do that because it's going to get super greasy and we're going to have to clean it. But I'd rather clean that thing than have to like paint the ceiling every time. True. So, and then I bought a little jar of Kills, which is a stain blocker primer. So either today or tomorrow I'm going to hit it up with Kills and then get the ceiling paint out. It shouldn't take 2 seconds, but still, it's like, I feel like eventually we're going to become those people who have like rules for cooking bacon in like the house manual. Nope. I know, you don't want to be those people.
See, I mean, I think that's a good point to bring up. I am totally against being those landlords that have like notes everywhere.
Yeah.
And all these rules. I think that's a really poor way to handle a rental, because we've seen those rentals where there are notes all over the house. Don't do this, don't do that, you know, do it like this. And I understand where the people are coming from, but then it starts feeling like it kind of keeps reminding me I'm living in someone else's house. Yeah. And I don't feel, it doesn't feel friendly.
I guess for me, I'm trying to find like what's the happy medium between being like, if you cook bacon, but
make
sure it's not everywhere.
Put in a rule book. I mean, are people going to even read that?
I don't know.
I never read those books, and I mean, it's either people know how to cook bacon or they don't, and it doesn't matter
if you tell them how to do it or not.
I think the way to do it is you set up the environment where you're giving people as many opportunities to do it the right way. Right. So kind of like what you did. Yeah. You bought the grease jar and you bought the splatter guard. I mean, if someone still has a messy bacon experience,
there's nothing you can do about it.
That's just the way it is.
Well, this kind of ties into one of the first times I cleaned the kitchen when we were cleaning the house was this really sweet couple with a little kid. They were really, really nice. They stayed for 2 nights. they left 2 nights and 2 days worth of dishes in the kitchen, which to me was shocking. I was like, has anyone ever done that where they're just like, oh, we'll let them clean it up, I just thought that was odd because I've never done that in an Airbnb. But then again, we always are like, you don't have to do anything before you leave. Like, we're the cleaners.
But everyone does do
the dishes. So you and I talked and we said, because most people ask, is there anything we can do before we leave? Should we wash the towels? And we're like, no, don't do that. You don't have to do any of that. We started saying, just do your dishes.
Right.
But does that sound like,
no.
Does that sound bad?
No, because people are, I think it's different from a hotel for us.
Yeah.
People understand they're staying in our home.
Right.
So they want to be helpful. So by just telling people, just do your dishes.
Do the dishes.
I think it's not a big deal. I think what we assumed by that couple, because they were very nice, the rest of the house was pretty clean.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget how each of us is different in what we think is clean.
Right.
So some people live a really messy a life. So for them, the fact that everything was just in the sink,
it was stacked up in the sink,
might have been clean for them.
Right. I think that's what it was. We were like, oh, these are people that maybe like at their own house don't probably have a dishwasher. Number one, we don't have a dishwasher at the farmhouse. It's a farmhouse. There's no dishwasher. And number two, like you said, stacked it up neatly and put everything where I could see that there were dishes and probably thought that was fine. Right. So that's a weird debate where I'm like, should I be doing everyone's dishes or not? I don't really know the answer, but I gladly washed them all. So it was fine. There's another thing that there's like a huge debate about this. Among
us.
Among people who run rentals. And
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
This was a bigger debate.
I mean, when you said we hate places that have notes, this is one of the notes that we saw at the B&B that we visited locally. This person who runs a B&B, we went over there. So women who wear makeup will often remove their makeup with a towel, like mascara, eyeshadow, foundation. That stuff does not come off a towel. You have to try very hard to get it off. You can do it. I have done it with OxyClean and pre-treating and a little toothbrush. But it's a weird debate because you're like, we have white towels. We like having white towels and white linens. We think they look nice. They're very like hotel quality. But, with washcloths and hand towels, when they get makeup on them, it's just a nightmare. So we bought makeup removal towels. You just get them at Walmart. You can get a big pack of them. But still, even if you provide those, people still, they'll clean themselves off in the bathroom and then they do it. They clean off their mascara with the towel. So that's what you hated about that one place was they left a note. They left these little like black washcloths and they're like, please only use these for makeup removal. So that's a big debate. Like,
but see, so for our personal experience, I always have to remind us of like, well, let's look at the big picture.
Right.
I mean, how often are people cleaning their face with makeup? I mean, maybe once a month.
I mean, I would say.
And it's not even like a full makeup.
Yeah.
Like someone's doing their whole face. It'll be like a smudge here or a smudge there. And we do run a rental in like a wedding area.
Yes.
Where we have people come and they're going to a wedding.
Yeah.
And so I think that's it's perspective. Most people that come, girls that come are not really wearing
a lot of makeup
because they're just out in the
they're hiking camping. And stuff.
It's just the wedding girls who are putting on makeup.
Yeah, that's true. Now I think that's a good perspective to have with any of these issues because these issues can color like your entire experience of running a rental. But you have to remember a majority of, people who come, there's not a single issue. Right. Like there's nothing wrong. Everything went great. It's fine.
I mean, and I think too, when you talk about the cough doing its business, let's say it would lose one towel, one washcloth every month even.
Right.
I mean,
it's not a big deal.
How much does it cost us? Like at Walmart, we found you can buy a big stack of white
washcloths.
A washcloth
I think it's
for how much?
18 washcloths for like $3.
So
yeah.
you could almost lose 18 washcloths every month and still just...
And you're fine.
It's replace them. And towels, I mean, you know, towels aren't the cheapest, but even if you had to, it's replace one towel every month, which we don't.
Right, we haven't.
But even worst case,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be that big of a deal
Yeah.
when we're making $3,000 and $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
It's just the cost of doing business.
I think it's a good perspective to have, because people freak out, and I do too sometimes, where I'm like, oh, what the hell? And then you're like, well, it's no big deal. Just cut it up, use it as a rag.
Right.
Like, it's fine. So one of the biggest issues that we had, which just happened this week, so we have electronic locks on the doors, and they're quick set locks, and they have the electronic pad and they have the handle. It's not like a deadbolt or anything. And both the locks on the house, and we have a little writer's cabin, which is also a bedroom. They both went out at the same time.
It's very strange.
It was so weird. I don't know if it's because they hit the 3.5, 4 year mark, and they just like don't work anymore. Or it's just a lot of wear and tear on those locks, because people are in and out, every day.
So why don't we talk about the problem that happened and then the way we're fixing it. So we check someone in. We know the locks are having problems, and we kind of tell the renters.
Yeah.
We're aware that they're acting weird.
But they still work.
But they should work. That they're going to get fixed after you guys leave.
The next
because
day.
We had ordered them online. And so as soon as we leave, we get a call 2 hours later where they're like, we got locked out of one of the
writer's cabin. Thank God they weren't locked out of the house.
Right. And so like we said, this is what we always do. We always pick up the phone.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes.
And we say, we're coming.
We're coming over
So
right
there's
now.
no waiting. We go there. And in this case, I made it's a mistake where I was like, well, just don't lock the door.
Right.
Because we live in a rural area.
Yeah.
On the end of a road. I mean, no one comes out there.
Right.
But that was really the wrong thing to say. And the father/husband was like, we want to lock.
Yeah, we want it to lock.
Like, we don't trust.
Yeah, they don't know our area.
And I felt bad because I was like, that was a stupid thing to say. So what we did was, we were like, we will buy another lock and put it in.
Just a lock with a key, a regular doorknob with a key.
And we actually said we would do it the next day.
Yeah.
But Ryan was like, let's do it now. So we actually went to Walmart.
Thank God for Walmart.
Bought a $15 lock with a key.
Yeah.
Brought it over, and Ryan changed it in 10 minutes. We gave him a key, and they were totally happy.
Oh, thank God. And the really good thing about that situation was, and you really helped me to do this, where I'm like, we're just going to stay calm. Like, the worst thing is like you said, we go to Walmart, we buy a doorknob with a, key, and just hand them the key. Like, the funny thing is, electronic lock levers versus like a regular key doorknob. A doorknob with a key, it took me 5 minutes.
Right.
To install it. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, it works. Here's the key. Like, I'm like, why don't we just have doors with keys? I don't want to have to hand renters keys. I want them to use an electronic lock. So the solution is this. We have these electronic locks on our house, and the ones we use the most are deadbolts. I have not had one single problem with the deadbolts and just a regular lever.
Deadbolt
electronic deadbolts.
Yeah.
I think it's because there's less movement, because with the levers, the whole thing is getting cranked when you're opening and shutting the door. So we are having a handyman guy who does a lot of work for us come over tomorrow. We blocked off days, and he is going to install deadbolts on every door and regular levers. So I am like so happy that we're doing that. I feel so much better about that. So I kind of, the problem was this: you could buy another electronic lock and just replace it, but I'm like, I don't trust these ones. I want deadbolts. So that's a whole other thing. So you have to like drill through the door and stuff. But the good thing is we're having him do a bunch of other stuff that we wanted to get done while he's there.
So, talking about a wear and tear, even after 8 months, I mean, we had fully renovated this house, and it's still in excellent shape. But we do notice there's just like little scratches, chip of paint.
Yeah.
bacon grease on the ceiling. I mean,
Yummy.
there are things. So we've actually made a list of things we're going to do over the period of a couple days.
Yeah.
We're going to go and like repaint some stuff and just kind of take care of things as they happen.
Replace a light that stopped working randomly,
right.
Stuff like that, where it starts to feel kind of ghetto when you're like, this light doesn't work, the lock doesn't work. You're like,
I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing things to kind of accumulate, all these problems accumulate over time, and then your house feels run down.
Yeah.
Just to take care of things as they kind of happen.
Right.
Every maybe 4 months.
Yeah.
Or 6 months, do a list and do everything. And also, this is important too for us. For us, it seems important to, when we're redoing something, to do it with the best quality.
Right.
Because we found either the best quality lights or the wood or the paint or the flooring, because the best quality will last.
Yeah.
If you just get the cheapest stuff, it's not going to last, and it's going to show its age and show its shabbiness
just right away.
Yeah,
totally. I mean, that's true for anything, for any stuff you get in the kitchen, the bathroom. Actually, we started having this conversation with a friend of ours about how the house is so nice, but when you buy like the generic stuff from Walmart,
it's different.
It's different, but
we put amenities out, I guess, like toothpaste and things in the kitchen, oil and popcorn and stuff like that. But we were buying like the cheap generic stuff, and like our friend who helps us take care of the place when it's gone, he said everything else is so nice, but then your other stuff is so generic, like it looks cheap.
Like I noticed someone bought some like cheap, I don't know if it was a renter, but they bought like some cheap like Bigelow tea. And I personally hate Bigelow. I think it's gross. It's like as bad as like Lipton.
Wow.
So I'm like, I need to go to the store and get like fancier tea before we go over there. Stuff like that where you're like, if I were to go to a place and have a nice thing, I would be like, ooh, this place is nice.
Well, and that goes back to what we talked about the cost of doing business.
Yes.
If people are going to spend $400 plus to stay a couple nights or a week, it's $200 a night to stay at our place. If we spend $5 for every renter that stays, that's ups their experience,
and
it doesn't really cost us a lot of money, so we can afford to buy the fancy tea, or the fancy olive oil.
I think it's against our instinct because for us, we're like super frugal in our life.
People in the world.
Oh my god, we're the cheapest. We try to do things quality in our house and stuff, but when it comes to like, olive oil, I'm buying the generic stuff. It's no big deal. But then, you're trying to have an experience that people aren't going to have at home. And that's the whole point, is that they're being pampered and treated, nicely when they're on vacation.
Because that's kind of our hope here. The reason why we're being so snobby about it is our hope is people come back. That's what we want, is that this to be a destination place where people are like, they're always thinking of that little country place where if they need to get out of their urban
city
environment, they'll come out for 2 weeks or bring the whole family and stay a week. That's what our hope is.
So that's why we're trying with each person to just really, be attentive, communicate.
Make them feel welcome and not feel like they're being nickel and dimed or always every room there's all these little signs. It makes it feel like, okay, I can't do this. I
hear you. I think it's a balance to figure out.
But, the good part of the story is, so the family that just stayed, where the lock didn't work, and it was a problem their first night, and it could have been bad. Where they were, I could tell the father was like,
what the hell?
It's going to be the beginning of a lot of problems, but we fixed it. It's within an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then we didn't hear from them all a weekend.
They were there 4 nights, something like that.
So obviously everything went fine. And then we just got a text from them that said that they're checking out because they just close the door and leave. And they said they even left a gift for us.
They left a gift.
That's what we want.
That's the ultimate. And then the beautiful thing is, I mean, like eBay, it's a feedback system.
Right.
Your reputation is based on all those reviews that you get. And thankfully, so far, we've had nothing but like insanely good reviews. Like, they're almost embarrassing how nice they are.
But see, that does make me feel good. But when I read other reviews for other places in our area, I realize that most renters want to leave
A good feedback,
5 stars. Like, that's people's default. It's only when they start feeling like the value is bad, the listing wasn't transparent as to what was happening, or they start feeling it's nickel and dimed. That's when they start bringing the feedback.
Right, exactly.
Or if something's dirty.
Or something.
That's the other thing. Like, if people aren't cleaning their houses properly.
Yeah, that's a big part of this is cleaning.
So, if anything, I just feel like the amenities are being really clean. You're almost like just trying to bribe people to give you good feedback. I mean,
See, I'm telling you, the fancy tea is giving people the incentive.
All right, so that's kind of how we do things. We handle we handle problems with its renters by good communication.
Good prompt communication.
We're always on call.
Us or the person we pay when we're not in town.
Right, so it's not like if it's after 8 o'clock and we don't pick up the phone. We're always pick up the phone, and we understand what is regular wear and tear.
We're learning that. Like this, this happened. Someone didn't maliciously break the electronic locks. No, that is regular wear and tear. It needs maintenance.
Someone was bringing a suitcase down our stairs and they bumped the wall and there was a black mark. That's wear and tear.
You got to clean it.
Yeah. And then we also are learning to block off certain days to
do maintenance.
Now
that's hard when you're making money on every night being rented.
Right.
But we really felt like, let's block these days off just so we can have some breathing room, do a little bit of maintenance and deep cleaning, and then we're feeling better after that.
And again, the reason why all of this is important is, this has really become a big part of our income.
Yeah, a huge part of our income.
This isn't like joking around, like just getting extra cash. Like, this is like a salary for a person.
Right. Right. And I think part of it too is when you're dealing with these issues, just like with eBay, it's very similar. You have to decide whether this is a business that you want to run, because the stress is stressful. It gets stressful, but as you deal with problems and they come up again, you have to be like, do I want to deal with this? If the answer is yes, it's worth it, then you keep going, and if it's not, you got to figure that out. So I think it's a good learning process of does this make sense for us to keep doing? And so far it does, even though people getting locked out of the houses.
Anything to keep me from having to get a regular job. These are easy problems.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so for our other podcast, Scavenger Life, we have a voicemail number that people call in and they leave comments or questions. And we've gotten a question for Shampoo and Booze. And I will give the phone number out if anyone wants to call and ask a question or leave a comment, talk about their own rental business. The phone number is 540-407-8486. And you have 3 minutes to leave a message, and we would love to hear it on the blog. So this is the first call we've gotten about rentals.
Hey guys, this is Amy calling from Cape Cod, and I listen to Scavenger Life all the time and love it and get a lot of good information, and I sell similarly to what you guys do and do really well. So I've been inspired by your rental place and have been listening to your new podcast. So this is actually a question for the new podcast, if you will take it. My $1 million question is, when you purchased your property, why did you choose to just do Airbnb rentals and not rent it full time to someone, 365 days a year instead of just doing weekends and weeks? I'm looking at a piece of property here on the Cape, and it can go either way. And I didn't know what your decision was to make it a weekly rental, a vacation rental, or a rental for someone who wants it a longer term commitment. Okay, that's my question. Thanks so much, and I will look forward to hearing it. Bye.
Okay, so the thing about our area where we live, we do not live in a posh area or an expensive area. I grew up in Massachusetts, so I know that Cape Cod can fetch quite good rental money for long-term or for short-term. But we live in a rural part of Virginia where you can rent an entire house for each month between $500 and $700. And when we do short-term rentals, we can rent for 2 nights over a weekend for $500. So we make a lot more money on short-term rentals.
Right. So we can make up to $4,000 to $5,000 a month if we're fully booked by doing weekends or 2 nights at a time or, 4 nights at a time.
Yeah.
It's a lot more cleaning and a lot more, work, but we make so much more money than we ever could if we just did it by the month. Now, if you're in Cape Cod,
yeah.
I mean, I can imagine, you could just rent it out for a month for, who knows, $4,000 or $5,000 plus dollars.
Especially in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just the kind of area you have. I would be interested to know how much you would have to spend to buy a house, because I would assume even the junkiest house would be worth
a lot of money on the Cape. It depends on the town. It depends on how close you are to the beach.
So I'd want to hear how long it would take you to recoup your investment.
Yeah. Those are questions I would love to know if you want to call back. But yeah, it's a very different location than Cape Cod. Cape Cod is a well-established vacation area. We are just still kind of establishing ourselves.
I mean, and I think we talked about this in one of the podcasts we did with Mark, where what's the difference between renting in Amsterdam versus renting in this rural place in Portugal
right.
where nobody goes. Location is what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, if we owned an apartment in Manhattan, I mean, we wouldn't have to fool around, because everyone would want to rent that.
Yeah,
and
there's
you
a
could
huge
rent it by
demand.
the month,
Yeah, and there's a huge demand on Cape Cod.
Right.
In the summertime, there's a massive, I don't know what it's like off season, but I do know that there's just a huge demand for short-term and long-term rentals during the summer seasons.
It's what it's always about. Do the
numbers.
Numbers. If you can make as much just doing it in one big month rental, man, that's great.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Much less work.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, do what works for you. And I would love to hear from you either in the comments or another phone call what you decide to do.
Yeah.
So, till next time, this is shampooandbooze.com.
See ya.
Bye.